Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that His presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. We are finishing up Mark chapter 1. It's the story of Jesus cleansing the leper. And you'll remember that the leper came to Jesus and said, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And we read where Jesus was possibly indignant or moved with compassion. And he tells the leper, "I am willing," and he touches the leper and cleanses him. And that's where we pick it up today, that the leper has been cured. And now we come to verse 43. Jesus sent him, the cured man, Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing, as a testimony to them." But instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. And so it's really interesting that Jesus tells him not to tell a word about this to anyone. First thing he's supposed to do is to go to the priest, who would have been in Jerusalem, so he's got a road trip to make from Galilee, and to offer sacrifices there as a testimony that he's been healed. The priests are the ones who could declare that he was cleansed, that he was ready to re-enter society. But Jesus told him, no, don't tell anyone, go there and do this. And yet, what did the man do? The man didn't go to Jerusalem. The man didn't go to the priest. Instead, he started telling everyone what Jesus had done for him. And the news spread so fast that Jesus couldn't go anywhere for the crowds. And so he ended up having to stay out in kind of lonely desert places. So what do we do with this? And why would Jesus tell him not to say this to anyone, but to go show himself to the priest? Well, I think there's maybe two or three things going on here. So first of all, we clearly see that Jesus is not about being popular. If Jesus was wanting to be popular, if Jesus was wanting to simply please people, then he would have had no problem with the man going and telling everybody, and Jesus would have kind of just basked in his popularity. But instead, Jesus is trying to avoid popularity, and he stays out in desert places. So Jesus is not about popularity. Jesus is about mission. He's about doing what the Father sent him to do. And the Father did not send him to become popular. The Father sent him to be on mission, to go to the cross, to bring God's kingdom. And so we see this kind of contrast between, a mission of popularity versus a mission of obedience to the Father's will. And that was obedience to suffering, death on a cross. And so that's the first thing we see going on. Maybe the second thing that we see going on is the desire of Jesus to be defined on his own terms. Jesus wants to define himself on his own terms. He does not want to be squeezed into kind of this popularity box of what they thought a Messiah should be or should do. And so Jesus, hey, don't tell anyone. I want to define myself. I want to be defined on my terms, suffering servant Messiah, as opposed to defined, by people's expectations in terms of you're going to be this popular king that's going to just bless us all. And so Jesus seeking to be understood on his own terms. So that leads me to kind of a third point, and that is, how do I understand Jesus? How do I see Jesus? Do I allow Jesus to define himself on his terms? Or am I looking to kind of force Jesus into what I want Jesus to be? So Jesus, you're going to be defined on my terms. See, I think that's one of the big goals of the Gospel of Mark, is to help us to come to terms with Jesus as Jesus defines himself. And so, Jesus on Jesus' terms rather than Jesus on my terms. And maybe one more thing. Then how do I define myself? On my terms or on Jesus' terms? And so I think that's the big challenge of discipleship, is to kind of move from me defining Jesus on my terms and me defining me on my terms to, wait a minute, Jesus gets to define himself, and Jesus also gets to define me. And I think maybe all that's wrapped up in Jesus telling the guy, look, I'm willing to cleanse you, but don't tell anyone what I've done for you. Go show yourself to the priest so that they can see what God has done for you. Well, God bless. Have a great day. Get to know Jesus more on his terms and allow him to define you. That's what I'm praying, that I would know Jesus on his terms and he would define me on his terms. God bless. Have a great day.